Hello, my tech buddies. Welcome or welcome back to the Good Firms Leaders Roundtable podcast, wherein we talk anything and everything about business, technology, leadership, and more. I'm your host, Suhana Bhattacharya, and whichever platform you're listening to us right now, whether it is Spotify, Google Podcast, or Amazon Music, we really want to thank you for being an avid listener. So, without much further ado, let's start by introducing our guest today, Katya Vakulenko. She's the founder and CEO of a leading digital marketing agency called Soup Agency. Along with that, she's also the chief marketing officer at Embody Women, a site inclusive fashion brand in Australia. So, thank you so much for coming onto our podcast today, Katya. Is there anything you want our audience to know about your ventures, something that I might have missed?
Thanks for having me, and I'm glad to be here. I think you pretty much covered it. I run two businesses, one being Soup Agency, and another one is an e-commerce fashion business called Embody Women.
Okay, that's great. So before we can dive more into how to build really strong performing teams so that the businesses can achieve their goals before the end of this year, I want a little backstory about the name of your organization. How did you come up with this name, Soup Agency? And we saw that you established it in 2019, and just a year later, the pandemic happened. So, how difficult was it for you to navigate that phase? And what did you learn from it?
Yeah, so I get that asked a lot actually. Soup Agency, Soup doesn't have anything to do with digital marketing or media buying. So I get a lot of people asking me, why did you call the company Soup? And the reason for that was, well, number one, I love soup. um,
Okay.
Number two is with soup, you've got all these different ingredients. So you've got a potato, a carrot, and an onion, and all of them as a single vegetable are pretty boring and not really tasty. But if you put it together into a carefully crafted recipe, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, make it in a certain way, you have a beautiful soup at the end that you can enjoy. So similar to digital, looking at one channel as a alone channel doesn't really give the results. So what we do at Soup is look at everything holistically and holistically put together the strategy of how do we get the results for clients. So it's kind of playing on those words a little bit with Soup and digital marketing.
It's really interesting.
Yeah. And in terms of pandemic in 2019, it was a tough period because, as you said, I started the business in June of 2019. So I had a good run of about 6 months, 7 months before the pandemic started. And it was a difficult period for the business. I think we lost probably about 80% of our revenue almost overnight. And I'm sure everyone can relate, especially from the marketing area. At the beginning of the pandemic, a lot of businesses weren't sure what to do and how to react to it. So the natural measure was to pause the marketing activity and kind of find their feet with what was happening in the world. But in terms of the COVID, one thing that it did teach me, I think, is that no matter what happens, if you just keep persevering and keep doing what you're doing, nothing can stop you. And now, I guess at the moment, we've got a lot of talk happening with the recession and interest rates going up, and there's uncertainty. But in some way, for me, I personally feel more at ease, I guess, knowing that we went through COVID, and for me, COVID was a much harder time as a business than anything else. So if you can go through the pandemic, then nothing can kind of stop you. But overall, I think it was also good for us because the pandemic was basically for 2 years. We had kind of good periods and bad periods, but that was the time that I started hiring my first staff, and we had to onboard all our staff remotely, making sure that we've got the communication set up and having all the systems and processes to be able to work during COVID. So that was really great from the perspective of longer term because it has enabled us as a business to be able to ensure that we have the communication not only to be able to work in the office, but also remotely if we need to.
And I really liked how you explained why did you keep the name of your agency Soup Agency, and I have a bit of runny nose, so I think I might have a soup after this call for breakfast. So,
Why not?
thank. And Katya, before we just move forward, I just want to make sure that I am pronouncing your name correctly. So, could you help me out there?
Yeah, no, cardio is perfect. I answered
Okay.
to anything. Cardio, cat. Yeah, no, you're doing well.
Okay, thank you, thank you. So, moving forward and really going deep into the actual conversation that we'll be having today on the podcast, to basically on how to build strong performing teams so that businesses can achieve their goals as they're approaching the year end. And it starts from aligning individual goals within the team's objective. So, how do you strike that balance at Soup Agency, and what strategies have you found effective? Because building a team for a business is almost equal to building a team for a sport, different kind of sport, whereas people are playing for themselves, but they also come together and perform as a team to take that team forward, right?
Yeah, I think it's really important to make sure that you align the goals of the individual to the goals of the team and to the businesses as a whole. Making sure as a leader and as a business owner, you are very clear with what the business goals are and how each individual contributes to them and contributes to the bigger picture. I think it's really important for them to see the value that they have in the company and how they drive the success of the company from the individual perspective, but making sure that also everyone's aligned to it, and almost bringing people on a journey, getting them to contribute and participate in the objectives and the business strategy and what is happening within the business. And where I find when you do that and you take the people on that journey with you, not only are they clear on that, but they're also very invested in making sure that those objectives are being done and aligned with what they're doing. I think also a big part is playing on people's strengths. So one thing that we do in the agency is identify what are people really good at, where do they have natural tendency or strength to kind of want to participate in, and we tailor the job description slightly to the person. And also, if there are certain other things that they want to do outside of their job description and it aligns with the business, we highly encourage it and nurture it in the company as well. So I think it's really important, if there is an individual in the company and they have a certain strength, that as a leader and business owner, you nurture that and kind of make sure prioritize it within the organization. The other thing that we do a lot is also make sure that we've got open communication between teams. So we've got 2 meetings that we do every week. One is on a Monday and one is on a Wednesday. And those meetings allows the team to kind of get understanding of what everyone else is working on. And as a team, they decide on the priorities for the week and what's happening within the agency. So it's almost they are kind of driving the team's objective as well in certain respect.
That's so true. And you did talk about communication here. So it involves a lot of building communication skills as well, because the team is interacting internally so that the work can be more aligned. So what role does effective communication play in building strong performing teams, and how can teams improve their communication skill? Because that is the one thing which will decrease a lot of friction between the management or the leader, manager, employee, all sort of those relationships, right?
Yeah, 100%. And I think it's all about collaboration. So making sure that the team works together, that they have clear and consistent communication, making sure that they catch up on a regular basis and just align on what is the priorities, what are we working on. If anyone has any questions or wants to put something forward, it's kind of done in that collaborative team environment. And hence why we've got those 2 kind of meetings to do almost like a stand-up briefing of what's happening. But the other thing within the teams, we also have regular catch-ups for certain clients or certain projects. We set up channels based on client workflow. So the team that's working on a client can also be speaking to each other. The other thing is having clear priorities and roles within the organization, so everyone knows who's responsible for what, when is it getting delivered, and that it kind of ensures that there is no miscommunication or inconsistency in what people are doing.
I really like the approach here because you did talk about collaborative mindset and regular team meetings to actually make sure that things are not just smooth from, I think, business to client relation, but also internally.
Yeah, 100%. And that's where I think the magic happens when you get different individuals in the same room together trying to solve a problem or maybe making something better. You kind of need that collaboration and them talking to each other. I think it has been difficult in the last few years with COVID and people working remotely, but there are thankfully a lot of different technologies that people can utilize to do that.
How do you actually nurture leadership within your team to create a sense of, shared responsibility?
So for us, what we do is just pay close attention to individuals who display those leadership qualities. Even potentially they may not be a leader in an organization now, but do they have those initial grains to become a leader with the right training? So demonstrating initiative, solving problems, having positive attitude and influence on others. So I think that's really important to identify that early and nurture that and work with that person with the training and mentorship programs. And that's one thing that we do in the agency. We work with everyone to put together a personal development plan. So they identify themselves, what do they need to work on, what they would like to work on, and how does that fit into the bigger picture. I think that gives a really good level of accountability because we work with them to align their personal development plan to what they want to do. And it's their responsibility then to work through that and make sure that they're kind of progressing. And as an agency, we regularly catch up with them to make sure that they're not having any issues, or maybe as an agency we need to support them on certain things, provide additional training for them. But I think in order to get that responsibility and accountability from the team, you really need them to drive that initial development plan in the first place.
I really like the personal development plan that you mentioned because not many people actually concentrate on that. They kind of get lost in chasing maybe what the company demands, but that is a wonderful way to make sure that employees are constantly updating themselves, or they are feeling content in their work, because when they feel content, I think the company progresses automatically.
100%. And no one wants to do the same thing over and over for years. People want to see that they're progressing, they're developing. They also want to understand what is that next step for them in the business. How can they get that promotion that they want, or how can they progress into a different role if they want. So sitting down with them and identifying where the gaps and what do they need to develop on just makes it really clear what they need to do, and then it makes it really clear what responsibility does the business have as well.
Right. And as you being an entrepreneur, I'm sure there are so many things on your plate that sometimes it can get a bit overwhelming. So that is where delegation is a critical skill for you and for any entrepreneur. So any delegation strategies that you have found effective in ensuring that tasks are executed efficiently while also empowering your team members?
Yeah, sometimes it can be really tricky to delegate, especially if you are starting a business, you're on your own, and then you're starting to get the team members in. It's almost easier to do it yourself, but in the long run, you need to delegate. As a business owner and entrepreneur, you have to work on the business rather than in the business to make the business grow. One thing with delegation, I think, though, is making sure that you've got your processes well set up for your team to be able to execute it correctly, and also ensuring that all the timelines are correct. When we kind of moved from a team of one to a team of many, we not only created the processes, but we've created templates and almost a project structure for tasks. So if there is a bigger task, but it involves 3 or 4 people, making sure that everyone knows at what point and when someone needs to get involved in what. So I think that's really important in order to delegate. And then the other thing is just regular communication with the team, making sure that if you do delegate and they have questions or they need support, that you're there for them and you have regular meetings with the team to ensure that things are kind of on track and being done.
Right, and delegation is quite like a underrated skill which is not really talked about a lot, but what you talked about, like learning to let go and delegate and build trust in your team, is so crucial in the long run. For a while it may not look like things are being done, or th- you might have kind of like a doubt, but in the long run I think it's just helping you.
Yeah, 100%. I think the other thing to mention here is probably making sure that you've got the right people in the first place, people who know what they're doing, who are committed to the business, and then you just helping them with the structure and the process to follow.
Okay. So I'm really intrigued to know that what lessons from maybe the world of sports or other industries have influenced your team building strategies at Soup Agency, and how have they been applied to your business context? Because we can learn a lot from various other industries, like maybe perseverance or teamwork, or like in the beginning I said, it's almost like making a team for bringing a World Cup, or giving that goal, giving that larger goal. So, anything from any other industry that you have applied in your business context?
Yeah, I think definitely world of sports can be very relatable in the context of team and how to work together as a team to achieve a bigger goal, and everyone has a part in that. So definitely there's some lessons from sports that have been applied. I've also taken a lot of lessons from when I was an employee in organizations and what those organizations did, the good and the bad. And I tried to take all the good and also looked at, okay, well, those things that I, as an employee, found inefficient or problematic, how can I actually change this within my organization to make sure that we work together as a team and it's very collaborative and a place that everyone wants to come to work every day.
I really liked how you reflected on your own journey to see what's been missing and what could be integrated once you take that stage and you become an entrepreneur.
Yeah, because I feel like sometimes, I don't know, but when I was an employee, I was always like, oh, well, one day when I have my own company, I will do it like this, or this has been a really good experience. I want to implement that. And as a business owner, I think it's important to see it from not only your side as the business owner and leader, but also from the team side, what makes sense for them and what ensures that they are happy and work in an environment that is nurturing and collaborative.
What advice would you give to young entrepreneurs, startups, or emerging businesses who are looking to maybe build their teams, who are looking to expand from the ground up? What key principles or strategies should they prioritize?
I think one of the biggest things that I would say is making sure that you hire the right people. And sometimes as a starting business, it could be tricky because you're not the shiny Google or Facebook to attract the top talent potentially. But I would encourage business owners to stick to their guns and make sure that they hire the right people, because if they don't, it is tricky to kind of work your way through that. I really encourage everyone to get in a network community of other business owners. I, for myself, when I started the company, I never ran a business. I don't come from a family that runs a business. All my friends work in corporate for someone else. So it can be sometimes a lonely journey in a way, but also one that is tricky when you've never done this before. How do you ensure that you are hiring the right people? Are you following the right process? Where do you look? I think the best thing would be to find other people who are in a similar industry to you, or other business owners who have gone through that, and having a chat with them, taking them out for coffee and just asking the questions and any kind of things that you need to find out. But then the other thing I would say is just from the very beginning, one big thing that I did, I'm a very process-driven person, and I've said it a few times now, but making sure that you have the right process, because if you do get the right people, but then the process is missing, the tools are missing. It's really tricky for those people to do their job and do it effectively. Aligning the goals of the organization to the people and kind of almost telling them in advance, what is your expectation of them? What do you want them to do? And also how can they progress with the business long term, showing your vision and your inspiration as a company over the next 1 year, 5 years, 10 years. So they know what they're working towards.
I really like how you mentioned that, you don't come from a family who has run a business before or have any prior experience. And I believe that networking helped you a lot, because just interacting with someone over coffee on how they had trouble building teams and really taking up those points, so that next time when you are in the same situation, you can perform better. So that has been a huge plus, I guess.
100%. I think that's probably my biggest recommendation. And it's not only to do with teams, it's anything. How do you build better process? How do you do better marketing? How do you ensure that you're doing the right thing? There's so many things as you become the business owner that you never had to really think about. HR policies, business side of things in terms of finances. So there's a lot, and especially if you're on your own, it can be sometimes overwhelming. So having someone there that has done this, has been there, has got some lessons and tips to give you, I think it's very, very invaluable to someone who's just starting out.
Can you let our audience know about how has been your journey since associating with our company, Goodfirms, and why you think it's important for businesses to actually have a good reputation using such platforms, so that more people can come and find them through good reviews?
Yeah, we've had a really good experience with Goodfirms since we set up our profile, which has been quite a while now. And in terms of digital, nowadays everyone looks at your digital profile and your reputation online. That's where they get their information from. So it's super important as a business, especially as a service level business, to make sure that you've got a really good digital presence and reputation, and you're following that image that you're portraying to the potential customers. So I think it's super important to be on platform like Goodfirms.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Katya, for sharing your knowledge and being on Goodfirms, actually, because it just helps us, bring better opportunities like these to entrepreneurs like you. Because we believe that, starting a business just a year before the pandemic has been such a brave move, and to be able to navigate it and doing wonderful. Congratulations, you're doing an amazing job. I'm saying that. And thank you so much for coming onto our podcast. And I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did.
Thank you for having me.